It's great to be here again. Thank you all for attending. Each year since the Oz Prize was first awarded in 2003, the range and the quality of the entries seems to improve. This year we had nearly 50 entries from across the region that the Trump administration has helpfully rebranded the Indo-Pacific. First time I can think of that Donald Trump has branded something with other than his own name. The entries this year were ranged geographically from Iran and Kazakhstan to Japan and Korea. They told of the challenges created by gender imbalances in the world's most populous countries, of the transformative technologies produced at great environmental cost to ancient lands. There were stories of the trade in sand mined by hand from subcontinental riverbeds to build the cities of the future, and the trade in skin harvested from poor unconscious victims in one country to meet the cosmetic needs of wealthy patients in another. We read about China's rising global power and the entire region's rising temperatures. But the theme that truly stood out to the jury is one that unfortunately is resonant globally this year, and that is the use of state power against society's most vulnerable. In the Philippines, for a second year, we had a compelling set of entries on the continuing wave of killings by police of people who have been labeled drug pushers and users. So frequent have these suspicious killings become that headline writers in the Philippines refer to them now as EJKs, extrajudicial killings. The government quibbles over the numbers killed, but President Duterte appallingly takes pride in the brutal campaign. No less appalling, President Trump has praised the effectiveness of the Philippine crackdown. The Oz Prize jury, with its chairman recused, decided that one of those entries by the Philippine digital news site Rappler should be a finalist for that prize for its deep reporting. The other instance of a state deploying its power against the powerless was in Burma. In 2014, this prize was awarded to Reuters for covering what we now realize was the start of a multi-year campaign of ethnic cleansing. That campaign, led by the Burmese military and its allies, targeted the Rohingya people, Muslims who live in the areas bordering Bangladesh. Since that time, the crisis has intensified. Villages have been burned, systematic rape of women and girls has been documented, hundreds of thousands have fled the country. Coverage of the crisis has been insistent and powerful, and yet the crisis continues, fueled by social media, rumors, and military efforts to keep the world's eyes away. The jury this year was deeply impressed by the journalism produced by a number of news organizations, including the New York Times and AP, which was a finalist for this award. The winner of this year's Oz Prize is Reuters and its two correspondents, Walon and Jasau, who led a team of Reuters reporters in Burma and Bangladesh and provided searing accounts of violence against the Rohingya. They documented systematic atrocities by the Burmese military, including the killing of 10 men. These two journalists in particular showed enormous courage in their work, and the risks they took were made manifest last December when they were arrested. They remain imprisoned, and we're pleased to have their family here today to receive this award. We'll now show a short video describing their work.
One thing that struck me from working with Jo-So-U was that he would be so brave and willing to just go into these areas where, where people might be hostile to journalists and might really not want you there. But he was committed to going there and working out exactly what was happening. And that's the kind of reporting that he does, and that's what he was doing when he was arrested.
I've worked with Walon on several stories, and I've seen up close how he works. He's very dogged, as all good reporters are. He's very straightforward and honest, and has a very strong sense of right and wrong. And of course, he loves to talk to people. And for all these reasons, I think people love to talk to him.
Jo-So, the night before he got arrested, he and me went out for dinner, and then he was talking to me about his life, like his wife and his daughter, and how he missed his daughter. And I was very sad that on the next day he got arrested and he couldn't meet he's going to go back to his daughter.
Wallon looked at me in handcuffs, standing in front of me inside of the Myanmar courtroom, and said that he felt very proud of this story, and that he felt incredibly excited that this story came out, and that people actually found out what these reporters were working on.
Wallon and Choso are world-class journalists, and they're a source of great pride to their colleagues and to public figures in Myanmar. We asked one local politician what he thought of Wallon, and he replied, he's a journalist who loves his country and loves his people. And that's a sentiment that we heard echoed by many other people.
For Reuters to count them among our journalists is a source of tremendous pride, and newsrooms around the world would want to have such dedicated and passionate and curious journalists like Wallon and Choso.
So I think we would like to present the award now to whom are we presenting the award, actually? To Reuters. Okay, Shoon and Kevin Krolicki from Reuters will receive the award on behalf of Reuters, Wallon and Choso.
Finger, don't be shy. So I'd just like to say thank you to the Asia Society, to the Elliott family. Thank you on behalf of Wallon and Choso, on behalf of our team in Myanmar, and all of us at Reuters. Wallon and Choso have been in prison since December for the reporting that exposed the massacre in Din. That reporting really was a culmination of the work that the Asia Society has recognized today. And recognition in journalism, journalism awards are always a good proxy that you're on the right track, that your award is your work is consequential. I think in this case, it's even more important. The recognition is even more important. It's a signal that the world is paying attention, and that they're not forgotten, and that they won't be forgotten as we work for their release. I wouldn't presume to speak for Wallon and Choso. I think their work speaks powerfully for itself. But for those of us who've been able to attend the court hearings, at the end of the hearing, the pretrial hearings, there's always a moment when Wallon and Choso can speak to the assembled media, and they've made their views very clear there. They believe in democracy. They believe in journalism. They believe that a free press is indispensable to democracy. And ultimately, they believe in the power of telling the truth. And they believe they'll be vindicated for that. So thank you. Thank you all very much.
I'm very honored to receive this award on behalf of my colleagues. And thanks so much for all your support and all your thoughts to my colleagues, I will make sure to delete the messages to them. They will feel very encouraged to be they are in the prison right now. They are really strong men. They're still holding on after this 6 months period. So I just want to say thank you very much.
So if our moderator and, Lawi, if you can come up to the stage as well. Yeah, good luck. Thank you both for your remarks, and congratulations to you and to all your colleagues. I'll just say a couple of words of introduction. Again, you have these in the bios, and I guess it goes without saying that there have been years when somebody wants to be on the panel. There have been other years when the honorees haven't been able to make it for logistical or travel reasons. This year posed, a different kind of challenge in terms of putting on. I think we should have a standing invitation for her to come back here in a few years for a program on whatever she wants. How about that? Yeah. Right.
That seems fine.
Moderator's discretion, just watch the glass. So just a couple of words of introduction to the panel that we've got together here. Kevin Krolicki, you've just met, Asia regional editor for Reuters. He's been with Reuters for the better part of 2 decades, I think. He was regional editor for the Americas, Washington bureau chief, and an editor and reporter in Singapore, Tokyo, Los Angeles, Detroit, and Washington. And Kevin, of course, helped lead and direct the coverage. Shoon Naing, who you also just heard from at the end, correspondent for Reuters based in Myanmar. She also worked on the series, having joined Reuters in 2016. I'm just thinking, actually, just because we do have a webcast audience that may have difficulties hearing, that is a brilliant idea. The power of the iPhone, ladies and gentlemen.
For the record, it's PBS.
Okay. Lawi Weng, who you've not met yet, 2 to my right, is also a journalist in Myanmar. He's risked his life and his freedom to report on military abuses against ethnic minorities in Myanmar. He described himself to me a moment ago as a conflict reporter, which can mean many things in your country, obviously. He's senior reporter for the Irrawaddy magazine, which is one of the few media organizations there, by the way, that even in the old regime under the military rule provided superb and independent coverage. And I want to thank our friends at Penn who are here for bringing Lawi Weng to this event. We're thrilled to have you all here and to have Lawi on the panel. And lastly, great pleasure to have Deborah Amos with us today. Deborah, as you probably know, she's covered just about everything, but most recently the Middle East for NPR News. She's been reporting on refugee resettlement in this country and immigration in the United States, teaching a course at Princeton at the moment, which is where she's come to us from today. She's won many awards. I'll just mention that in 2017, just last year, Deborah won the International Women's Media Foundation Courage in Journalism Award. She's also the recipient of the Alfred DuPont Columbia Award and the George Foster Peabody Award. Those, as you probably know, are 2 of the most prestigious prizes there are in broadcast journalism. They'll have a conversation for a half an hour or so. They'll take your questions. I mentioned the webcast. We are webcasting this program, and so the reminder for those watching beyond the room, if you have a question, you can tweet it using the hashtag Asia Society Live. You can email it to moderator@asiasociety.org. That's it from me, Deb Amos. The panel is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. I think before we start questions, I just want to say that, it's a good day for journalism, not such a good day for journalists. These 2 fine reporters did some extraordinary work, and let's talk for a minute, for those of you who haven't read their submissions for this award, some things that they revealed that are really startling. Documenting the cases of children as young as 10 detained for consorting with insurgents, families who were told by soldiers, give us names or we'll kill you. They describe the command structure of the Myanmar army operation against the Rohingya And I have to say, they talked about Rohingya radical groups, which I actually didn't remember when I first started reading about this crisis. All of that is incredibly important to our understanding of this particular crisis. So I want to ask the panel about the risks versus, I'm not going to say the rewards, but the risks versus knowing. How do you balance that? How do you balance this kind of crisis with what has happened to these two reporters? Let's start with the boss.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this is directly an answer to the question, but I think for us what was important and what shows in the reporting of Wallon and Choseo here is the comprehensiveness and the carefulness of the approach and the way that in doing this reporting, and I should say this is an important caveat, I was not involved in this coverage and didn't direct it. I only arrived for us in Asia in January. But what was important was the way that the reporting honored here stitches together the perspective and the accounts of first-hand witnesses, including Rakhine Buddhists, including Rohingya, both in Myanmar and in Bangladesh, and including also members of the perspective from members of the government and the security forces, and relying wherever possible on documentary evidence too. Documents in the case of the story you cited about the detentions of children early in 2017, actually late in 2016 and continuing into 2017, and photographs in the case of the Indin story.
Shoon, does their arrest, does it change your calculations on how you work?
Well, we do need to become more careful. It is not only because of the arrest. Even before the arrest, we do have to be careful whenever we have to report in terms of the Rohingya crisis, the Rakhine crisis, the Rohingya issue. So yeah, the arrest make it more clear that we have to be more careful. But if we just become more careful, it's not that we stop or we hesitate. We just do double checking, triple checking, and careful and be as correct and as accurate as possible.
Now, you don't have protection of an international news organization. How do you manage risk?
Well, our country, after we had a reform and we don't have any more censorship, so and so we had to do a lot of self-censorship. So I came back from the country, I used to be exiled, a journalist, 12 years in Thailand. So when it had a reform, I came back and so into the country. So we had no more a censorship, but we had to do a lot of censorship, like the case of Rohingya, when you are reporting the number of the people. We use it from Arakan project. That is one of the project who working for Rohingya thing, and so sometimes we quote it. But at least we need to get a quote from the side of the government too. If you take only one side, and then they will charge you. So we're talking about self-censorship. So the case of the ethnic issue too, there is a rebel report, they are fighting. So a rebel may say toy soldier from Myanmar army, we call Burmese army, were killed. And how many wounded they reported. So we use that quote, but we also talk to the side of the government, army side. If you don't get a side of the army, you will be charged. But again, in the past, we don't need that type of thing, from the beginning, not very serious. But when they found it later on, they restricted more and more. Now it's getting very serious.
Although both sides is good journalism.
Yes, but look at the government side and the army side. You call maybe in the morning until in the evening, maybe 6 o'clock. They did not answer the phone.
So you can't publish without it.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to please state your mind. Okay, I stop this reporting. I will stop with this story because it will make me trouble if I use it.
And do you think that they know that you cannot publish without a quote, and so when they want to squash something, they just don't answer the phone?
Yes. They didn't do it. So They never answer the phone.
I want to ask specifically about what's happened to these two reporters, because I'm reading that they go to a dinner. They not only are set up, but now there's a policeman who testifies that they were set up in court, and now he finds himself in jail. Does that matter that the specifics of what happened is now more public than it was? And to which audience? I mean, is there an internal audience that the government is keen on painting these two as dangerous characters, and is there an international audience?
Is that for me?
You might as well do it in the same order we've been doing it.
Okay. Well, our counsel is here at this table and probably have a better and fuller answer. But we believe it matters, and we believe the facts matter. Shoon can speak to how, as the revelations, including the testimony from the police captain you mentioned, how those have changed public perceptions, perhaps at the margin, or maybe more than at the margin in Myanmar. But yes, it's very clear now from the testimony that has been presented that there isn't that case here, and they should be freed.
Did they target them because they were good at what they were doing? I mean, did they target other journalists who didn't take the bait, or were they after these two in particular?
Can I tell my experience? And so I'm a conflict reporter, and I traveling a lot to the fighting area between the Burmese army and the rebel. And so they every time when my report come out, they did not like it. They are angry. I mean, they spoiled it. So they chasing. Maybe the theft on my phone. After I was arrested, I realized this. My phone was theft like maybe 4 months before I was arrested. Because sometimes I call, and then I can hear back my voice. I have a phone like that too. And so later on, I was arrested on the way coming back on the jungle. So they are quite worried that because they lost the soldier, the gun, I got it, the photo. If I run the story, they will lose the position. So some of the let's say, a colonel who lead the front line. So whether they targeted me and the Wat Long, of course, they targeted the reporter who they don't like, who like reporting about they are losing on the ground, or maybe they are doing like human rights abuses. So they are really targeting in this, like in the country where there are reporters who are, reporting about the human rights abuses about them. So they are pay attention a lot. So they targeted, I believe.
So you say the same? They targeted them in particular?
Yeah. I mean, Wat Long was reporting on the Rohingya issue. I mean, Reuters were reporting on the Rohingya issue, right in the front line in Myanmar. So they are obviously looking. They were definitely looking at the Guano and also on Reuters and Kyah and I. So yeah, I agree with what my friend said.
And I wouldn't speculate as to the government's motivation here, but just to say something about the power of the story that was ultimately, they were reporting in December at the time of their arrest, that was ultimately published in February. It was, and you saw the images, but the truth there is inescapable. And it's the first time you had a report of that kind that included pictures of the 10 men at the time of their arrest, after they were killed, and of the makeshift gravesite, and included the testimony, first-hand testimony of Rakhine villagers who had participated in the killing and witnessed the killing. And I think the government's position until then had been that many of these claims, I think Aung San Suu Kyi had called them an iceberg of misinformation. So it's a very powerful story in that context.
Let me ask a little bit about local reporters, the power of local reporters. They know the language, they know the culture, they know the geography, they have history, but yet they are in some ways more vulnerable than international correspondents who come in. They have families that can be pressured, relatives that can be pressured. How do you weigh that risk of reporting?
Yes,
that's you.
That's for me again. We had an agreement that all the hard questions were going to go to Shoon.
That's a journalism question.
Yes, it is. You're right. It is a risk, and it's one that we think about and do our best to minimize every day. Each instance is different, but it's incredibly important to us because without reporters like Walon and Chose'u, who and I should say, Chose'u's particular contribution to this reporting was that at the time that this reporting was unfolding, he and his family were living in Sittwe, so he had a particular advantage in being able to go into Rakhine and to talk to Rakhine Buddhists there and to seek that perspective and that witness testimony for this reporting. So protecting our staff, having staff like that is incredibly important, and then protecting them is something we spend a lot of time on.
It doesn't, you're not home free if you come from outside to do the reporting, as we know from Peter Grestes, who spent more than a year in jail in Egypt. So it doesn't protect you. But I want to ask the two, quote, local reporters, when you are out reporting and the New York Times is standing next to you, do you think, does it ever cross your mind, I have to be more careful than they?
Let me, so when we travel on the conflict area, and so we careful a lot, so we need to pretend at a local. In case of we don't need to bring a foreign reporter, so we don't bring it, because of the local pay a lot of attention, right? Even the authority, they pay a lot of attention, so if they see someone, and so they may not let you travel. So it's quite difficult, but sometimes we did. How we did it, we cover the mark like this, and then we pretend at a local, and so we drive a motorbike and put on the back, or maybe hide it in the car, and so this is how. But it's taking a lot of risks, If they see, they can punish you, because you are hiding someone to get in the what we call a conflict zone where they did not let you go, they did not let the foreigner go. But again, even the local reporter, now they block it in Arakan, so no one can go unless they bring you there. So if you go and without asking permission there, so they can shoot you or whatever they can do. So we need to balance a lot.
So you were
the best
arrested.
thing is
you were arrested.
We go ourselves. We don't bring where the local can see very easy and pay a lot of attention. So we just pretend like local people. So the first one, like Chose'u, is Arakan, so he can speak a language, local language. That's how help. So sometimes we use a lot. Yeah.
But you went to jail in 2007.
2017.
2017, sorry.
Yes, I was arrested for 2 months.
And so when you think back about that experience, does that in any way inform what you think is going to happen now? Do you think 2 months is not a lot? They've been in for 6 December.
Months.
Yeah, 6 months. This is a higher profile case than yours?
That's what I said. My case is the rebel and the Myanmar army, the Burmese army are fighting. So my case is this is Burma is there are many rebel armed groups, they're fighting. This is quite normal. And then when I was arrested, people in the country condemn a lot of action from the government why arrested the journalists. But this Walon case is different. This is a Rohingya case. The people in the country, they hate Rohingya. They think these people come from Bangladesh. And so then the government even did not like the Rohingya too, because the international put a lot of pressure. And so to fight the international and these two reporters becoming the two bullfighting, they are aggressive, destroy, what we call trample. So that type of thing. So they don't want to release as soon as me. I'm in 2 months. Now they are 6 months. My case is a different one. This is their case, a Rohingya case. It's quite serious, a little serious. But they may release it soon. But a little, they are fighting with the international. What I think, this is my opinion.
New kind of hard question. And that is about fake news. We are in an era of fake news where politicians, not just ours, but this is now a thing, can say, this is fake. And because they have powerful pulpits, there are people who believe that. And I wondered if you thought, I mean, we have seen journalists go to jail through my entire career. I wondered if you thought it was tougher now to fight against governments who want to shut down honest reporting, if you think this fake news era makes that more difficult. Let me ask Shoon if you think so. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, for example, in our case, like in Wallo and Joseph case, so government is saying like it is not related to their reporting, and even for the police witness who testified that the government is saying that this police is lying. So, and also many people are believing that on that government perspective. So, yeah, I mean, it just depends on the issue and depends on the public. Like, as my friend mentioned, like it's Rohingya issue, so people will believe whatever the government say. If it is like different issue, it might not be that way. So, I see that it is like in that way.
And Kevin, are you finding that in this crazy time of fake news, it just got harder?
I think this is something we talk about a lot too. It's a reminder for us that we have to be even more scrupulous in doing what we've always done, which is to show our work, to describe our sources as closely as we can, to be absolutely careful in our reporting and clear in presentation. I would just say, though, with regard to this case, and when it comes to the story of the 10 men who were killed in Indin, the facts are no longer in question. This is not a fake news debate. The government initially said it didn't happen, then after their arrest said that they had found evidence that the 10 men were killed, made arrests in that case. And so this is an instance where, in some ways, that dynamic really doesn't apply.
Am I right in reading that the length of jail sentence, the potential one, for the journalists is larger than the people who actually carried out the attacks?
Right. I think the maximum sentence under the Official Secrets Act is 14 years as opposed to 7 years for those who were sentenced in the crime itself.
I want to just change topics just a tiny bit because we get focused on our own issues with Facebook in this country. And I have to tell you that until I went to a conference about weaponizing social media, I had no idea that Facebook played a role in all of this because I wouldn't have been reading it. And so I think that it's worthwhile, at least focusing on that for a moment, to talk about the role that it played and why no one could shut it down.
Well, I mean, first of all, in Myanmar, the most popular social media is the Facebook. So Facebook is everything. Government make announcements through their own official page on Facebook. So, like, as journalists, as a Myanmar journalist, I have to follow their first thing, and I have to check all the time. So that's how important it is. And also, whenever there's an issue, like people discuss widely on Facebook, the government has to pay attention on it and might even need to fix it. So, like, that's more regional issue, I mean. So, yeah, so Facebook plays a really big role in this hate speech and things. So, but I don't know why they cannot shut it down. It just maybe just so widely spread. I cannot answer the question why no one can shut it down.
Well, and the question is, what's the definition of hate speech on Facebook, and who monitors it and decides that it's too much? Do you find that there is, even to this day, anti-Rohingya propaganda?
It's getting a little better. I noticed, like just last week, I told you one event about there's one case on the border in Meso, between Thailand and Burma. There's one community, the Muslim and the Buddhist, they fighting each other. And then there's one guy, he uploaded a footage of video, and then it shared very quick. And then I tried to find, maybe this is news. I even tried to get that link, and then they blocked it. So as soon as they upload, they block it. But in the past, this is getting better. And now it's Facebook, they try to shut down the hate speech. I mean, but before, that type of video, they let it go long time, and people share, and then they spread the hate speech. This is how bad the Muslim, this is how bad action, whatever. So that's it come to in the past. That's how anti-Muslim this is what we think. By the way, now it start. I noticed it better a little bit now. They shut it down.
And is that because somebody is monitoring, or people don't feel that they need to put that kind of stuff on Facebook?
They're monitoring now.
Yeah, monitoring.
Yeah,
monitoring
they have a
sure.
team. I know
people
some
still
of
post a
friends.
lot of steps.
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin, in your experience, do you think that it was a contributing cause to what happened?
I don't know if we can say that. I know that it's been, and I don't read Burmese like these guys, but monitoring the hate speech directed at us, sometimes the threats, has been a source of kind of continuing concern for us, and something we've looked carefully at.
Hate speech against Reuters?
Against Reuters, against our reporters.
I mean, they also like screenshot my Facebook profile page and say like, oh, this Bengali woman reporting Bengali issue from Reuters, as they refer Rohingya as the Bengali. I mean,
It's been very interesting to look at the list of luminaries who have protested, called for their release. And in some ways, it is longer than the usual suspects. People really came to bat. But so far, there has been no appropriate pressure that has moved the government one way or the other. In fact, now that we have, this testimony of a setup and nothing has changed, it raises a question. And the question is there appropriate pressure? Is there anything that can be done that the government would actually pay attention to?
I think it has to become, for Myanmar, it has to come from the internal. The pressure needs to come from the internal. I mean, from the Myanmar people, pressure. And unfortunately, Myanmar people doesn't really like Rohingya, so doesn't accept the Rohingya. So they don't accept our reporting and my colleagues. So the pressure is not coming from there yet. But actually, this testimony of this policeman really changed a lot of opinion, and many more Myanmar people are accepting on our reporting and our guides. So it changed a lot. But it's maybe not to a limit that the government will change on the case yet.
You agree?
Yeah. It is the police, the guy who was sentenced 1 year in prison. So he became like a hero. What a lot of people, like Facebook users, they recognized him as a hero. They supported him a lot. So it changed. It changed, like compared to the past regarding the 2 hour reporter. So yeah, the viewpoint and the people supporting, it's getting better. Yes.
I want to talk about, hard question coming up, I want to talk about the lady. I want to talk about Aung San Suu Kyi. I think for many of us who aren't following the daily on what's happening with the Rohingya, that caught people's attention. She was a Nobel Prize winner. She was, a heroine for many people. And then it was shocking that she appeared to do very little when this crisis began. Can you all explain whether this is an issue of she doesn't have the power, that this is an internal balance that she is trying to keep? I mean, you know what the laundry list is of explanations as much as I do, but if you could just talk about how that plays out internally.
Our country, like we had the army control, like the army control interior ministry, border affair. So this is the main thing is like to run the country, like yeah. So like the case of like Ryder, these 2 reporters. So we try to find it out who are taking action on this case. So it comes from like interior ministry, but firstly it comes from the ministry, interior ministry, and then interior ministry sent a letter to the Supreme Court. There are 10 like nominated the army guy who are the head of the Supreme Court, and then when this Supreme Court agreed to take action to these 2 guys, and then they said yes, do it. So they sent back a letter to the Interior Ministry. Interior Ministry's order to the police to arrest. So the government, it cannot influence on this case. So since before the reform, the army took it already this ministry. They are under control of the army. So it's quite hard for the government to interfere in this case. But it's very difficult to understand why she keep quiet. Yeah, because she is a Nobel Peace winner. She is fighting for her human rights and democracy. But why? Why? And many people, even in the country, they could not understand why. But again, the Burmese mindset, this is my opinion. Many Burmese, they hate the Bengali or what they call Rohingya. Or they hate it. So if you involved in this case, that means you supported Rohingya. And then many nationalists in the country will attack you. So she may keep silent on this thing. Maybe in the future she worry she will not get a vote or that kind of thing. Maybe.
So?
Yeah, I mean, I just agree what actually he's pretty much like this public support in terms of the public support. Maybe so we just don't know like why she's quiet. Maybe because she's the government right now, so she's doing a lot of high-desk job and she is not really like in front of the stage, not like an activist or a human rights activist before who is encouraging or who is like reminding on the government. She's now the government, so she doesn't speak out anymore. She doesn't need to because she is the one who has to do the job. So maybe, we really wonder why she is quiet, but we just don't have the answer don't have the right answer. There are many speculations.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think we were, this was really informed speculation, but we're all speculating. And you hear the argument that because of the government and the power of the military, she's powerless to intervene. On the other hand, as we all know, she had incredible moral authority and power when she was under house arrest. So why she's been silent on this issue generally and our subset of this issue, I don't know.
I want to talk about the persistence of the crisis. And I want to start with something I mentioned early on in this notion that there is, a quite radical group of Rohingya. And does that movement grow when you have such oppression? Or now that so many people have left, it doesn't really matter. I mean, what are the dynamics for this particular group?
The ASA, right? You mean, yeah? Yeah, the ASA case. Whether they exist in this region or not, we don't know.
Really?
Yes. They're based on the border of Bangladesh and Arakan. But let's get back in the 2016, the attack that I was on the ground. So again, they attacked the police base, and so the army take action. At that time, it's not bad. Like this 2017, they don't launch a big military operation. So ASA at that time exists on that land. But now it seems like they're not existing anymore. They are silent. So whether they're getting grow or we cannot find it. It's very difficult.
I cover the Middle East. And there is something that you know that happens in refugee camps to young people who grow up there with no hope. And those sort of radical ideas become attractive. And I don't know the dynamics in your country as well as I know the Middle East. Is it different?
Yeah, I don't think much different. That it is very much possible one. But as my friend says, like now we don't really have Rohingya in Myanmar anymore. We only have a limited amount. So like, I don't think ASA is not really based in Myanmar anymore. Maybe, I don't know, outside of the country. But yeah, that ideology is, as far as the reporting, that ideology is very common in the Rohingya group.
But they aren't far away in the way that, let's say Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Afghans, there were millions. And there was 2-3 generations that grew up right next to the country. So the issue doesn't go away. So my larger question is this a crisis that just continues in different shapes and different forms, but it's certainly not over?
It's not over yet. They're recruiting the people and they're organizing very well. But, at the moment is because there is no people on the ground, and then they cannot survive because of no food. There is no people where you can get food, where to run the army or whatever. So maybe at the moment they stay on the side of Bangladesh, but maybe when those people come back, they may come back soon, or maybe they cross the border or whatever, and then they can survive. But at the moment it's no existing. Yeah.
Kevin, your assessment?
Well, just the period of reporting we're talking about here really is bookended by is it October? Yeah, October of 2016, and then August of 2017, when there are ARSA attacks on police stations in Rakhine. And one of the stories that's honored among the submission here, it looks at how ARSA in that second attack had become much more sophisticated, operating at bigger scale and able to mobilize hundreds of people.
And there's a human rights report today documenting a massacre by them. So there's more information coming out about them. And so your assessment is they are a force?
I really couldn't speak to it. I really don't know.
It's really difficult to see. It's really difficult to see. We really don't know.
And I guess the more important question is, how do you see this crisis as it, moves forward? Is this a, disenfranchised population that, eventually resettles someplace else, or do they stay on that border and there's tension?
They stay on that border, and then it's quite easy to recruit the people at the moment, because you look at the young people, and look at like in 2016, that is not very systematic how they attack. But in 2017, the way they attack are more systematic. Yeah. So if we look at now, they are working on their job, but we cannot see it. That's why we say it's quite difficult. But for them, it's quite easy to recruit the people. And then the way the idea is, before the army launched the military operation, they operated like military training on the mountain, Mayu we call mountain, and then some of the kids, they're hiding the food, and the way they organize it is like, look, a rebel. So their idea is, they run at a rebel in the future. So they're not, it's not over yet. They are in somewhere. And then it's easy to recruit the people, because the people are angry, with the Burmese army, the country, how they treated them very poor, and so it's not over.
One last question, and then I want to open it up to the group, and that is, you said that there was some shift in public opinion inside the country towards the journalists, towards the lady. Is there any shift towards Rohingya after everything that's happened? I'm sure that there are people who can look and see, because there's been more reporting, and if you can get online, you can see it. Is that moving?
I don't think so. I don't think there is a shift of the opinion on the Rohingya. So maybe there is a limited people, very small limited people, who might shift their idea on the Rohingya, like they understand them, or even if they don't accept that, they understand like in a humanity basic humanity grounds, they might understand them, but mostly no.
Same?
It's the same, because there are many nationalists in the country, and then there are also majority supporter Aung San Suu Kyi. So look, if they say or they recognize it Rohingya, and then many people will attack them, against them, will not vote for them. So they won't show, so they won't, So I don't think so. It will change, recognize a lot or whatever. It will change soon. I don't think.
So not even young people?
No.
Wow. Well, we'll be back here then again, won't we? I would now like to open it up to the floor for questions. And if you can... Oh, we have an online question. Okay. Jesse asks via Twitter, good journalism is especially important in today's political climate. What's the biggest challenge faced by local journalists in Myanmar?
The biggest challenge. So I talk about this sometimes. We had, let's say, in Burma, 100 reporters. Now it remains maybe 20 or 10 reporters who are talking about Rohingya. Because if you're talking about this, or if you write about this, you post on your Facebook or whatever, they attack you. And then they even give you a name like Rohingya reporter or Muslim reporter. And then even maybe you and me are friends. but you are a supporter of Aung San Suu Kyi, and maybe one time we had a drink sitting talking like this, and then we will have a big argument. So sometimes you get so stressful, and so maybe you just stay yourself, find out who you can talk. So we had a very little friend now. A small group of reporters.
So the biggest challenge is like, in the conclusion of what he says, the biggest challenge is the hater we face. And the hater and of government, people, political parties, nationalist group, and also public.
Welcome to my world. Journalists in America are not on the top of the list either. I have a second question from Twitter. Sanctions against Myanmar for treatment of Rohingya. Is that a good idea? Would it make anything better?
I said there are two views in the country, but majority view are if you make a sanction, the reform in the country will damage. This is the people who are supporters of Aung San Suu Kyi, including many editors of the news group, news organization. They think like, if sanctions come, the reform will damage, the army will have a coup, whatever that they said. But again, like my viewpoint, so where you let the army killing the people, making human rights abuses widely in the country, kicks out who they don't like. They say, the ethnic group, not only Rohingya, like there are small minority people like that, Obama, like, so they are quite worried where the army treated us like a minority, similar to Rohingya one day. They're getting more worried about it. So this is how, you know.
Mm-hmm. So those views, I have heard of those views like that. This will affect on the sanction will affect on the reform. But then there are also other people who think that, in a country where this have like this Rohingya issue and also these ethnic issues, they should not just let the country grow. So like it's a agreeable point. Like there are many people who have both different opinions.
Yeah, the country's not going to have a vote on this, but I think that the question just is an interesting one. Does it make any difference?
At the risk of coaxing everyone into an early afternoon nap, our job really, and I'm trying to duck the question, but our job really, and it's a hard one, is to report what just happened here. That's really hard. The question of what should happen, what should other governments do, policy questions, those aren't questions for us.
That's exactly how I would have ducked that. Questions from the audience? Sir.
On the previous question about sanctions, you said that some people believe that it would damage reforms, and so I just, to get a little broader context, is the reform that we're talking about purely economic reforms as opposed to political reforms, so that, in other words, they don't want sanctions because somebody's making a lot of money and the price that they pay for that is the Rohingya?
That's both the political reform and economic reform. They are worried about like the army will take a coup, and then they will kick out Suu Kyi, and who will be next, your leader? We don't have like a future leader. They said so. They are worried about like, that's why I said like the reform will damage. So that's it. Like, well, people are worried. Yeah.
Is there a suggestion if sanctions come and the army thinks that there's nothing else to lose that they could?
No. This army, they had a nightmare. Now they even talking about like ICC or what. They had a big nightmare because they had a big economy in the country that we call Ubang, like a big company. The army control almost everything. So when you target the sanction, so they cannot make money to other country, business and everything, even the family cannot travel other country. So if you do sanction, but this is my viewpoint again, they are really worried about it. They have to think in the future what their action again. So this is my sanction need to go. What I think, that's it. A good thing. But yes, the army is really scary about it. But people are worried for supporters of Suu Kyi are saying like this: the reform will damage.
Okay. Questions? Sir? Oh. Where? Was that somebody with a hand up back there? Yep. I have a Another Twitter question. No, this one is via email. This is Daniel from Mexico City. So we have a very wide audience out there. Journalists all over the world are in danger of incarceration and violence. How can the global community join voices to protect these courageous professionals? Kevin.
Well, it's an honor, and I think it's important that we're here today. So thank you again to Asia Society for hosting this and calling attention again to these risks and the very difficult conditions under which reporters like Wa Lone and Chosu operate. Beyond that, beyond more conversation, I don't know what to advocate.
We are at a moment when powerful governments can menace powerless people. We've watched the Syrian conflict unfold for the past 7 years, and everybody is horrified, but nothing changes. Are we in an era where there is very little that you can do because it becomes a domestic issue, and until it can get solved domestically, we can yell and scream and jump up and down and give awards, but that's not really where the power gets shifted? Kevin, you probably have a better, broader view.
Just to be clear, it's an outrage that Wa Lone and Chosu are in prison. They were just doing their jobs. That is an outrage. At the same time, it's not our job, and they don't see it as their job for us to be yelling and screaming and jumping up and down. I mean, what we really want to do, our contribution to this is to tell the truth, is to establish the facts, and that's what we want to do. That's what they want to do. That's what, if they were out of prison tomorrow, they would be doing. That's our best and only contribution.
And I think that the jumping up and down question comes from the questioner from Mexico City, because he's asking, is there something you can do, or are we in an era where it is very difficult to pressure a government to release journalists for doing their jobs? And is that getting more difficult than it's been in the past?
Again, for me. We've heard it here, and there certainly is a view that international pressure on this case is potentially counterproductive. So that's if we think again, and I'm sorry for being parochial about this, but if we think about our case here as a microcosm of that question, there's a balance there. We want the attention that the case demands and deserves, but we also want this to be resolved in a way that expedites their release.
I think all of these journalism cases that we've seen over the past couple of years are about the same thing. The Egyptian case, same. These were reporters who were doing their jobs. And it was never really clear why, in the end, the Egyptian judiciary called a halt to it. Was it external pressure? Was it internal pressure? Was it governments? And it's really hard to know. And for all of us who watch our colleagues take these kind of risks, I think it's a reasonable question to ask. You want a toolbox. And if that toolbox has gotten smaller, that's an interesting thing to think about. And it sounds like what you're saying is, yes, the toolbox has gotten smaller.
I don't feel like we have an overly large toolbox.
Yeah. Tom.
Yeah, this may have to be for Kevin also, I'm not sure, but can you take this discussion just for a moment to the other side of the border? We've not seen, or I just may have missed it, some major pieces recently about how bad, or has it improved at all, the situation is in the camps, Cox's Bazar and these other places in Bangladesh. We hear about the monsoon season coming. And I just wonder if you can, any of you, give your assessment of, because that's something I would assume the international community can be doing something about. How bad is it? What needs to happen?
I haven't been there.
You have not?
No, in Bangladesh, no. I just on the side of Arakan.
It's me again.
Sorry.
I'll just again to kind of talk about our approach to reporting the story, and we have had and continue to have reporters working from Cox's Bazar, both to chronicle the condition in the camps, and then as reporters who have access then to a group of hundreds of thousands of people who were firsthand witnesses to what had happened. So we're continuing to cover that story. We're committed to it. As to whether how much and to characterize how worse conditions have become, I really can't do that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara Demick from the LA Times. I just wanted to go back to this question of the pressures on journalists and the social pressures. You were saying, Deborah, that we feel the same thing as journalists in the U.S., but it's really not the same because lots of people love you and a lot of people love NPR. Do you have people who respect what you're doing? Or have your friends, your old friends, your family been in Myanmar? I mean, your friends and your family. Do they respect what you're doing? And can they, this is more complicated, can they separate out the issue of whether or not they like the Rohingya and the truth? Can they say, maybe we don't like the Rohingya, but we want truthful reporting? Or is it all sort of mixed together?
After I get out from prison, many people know me, and whenever I travel, this guy, they like it, and they support it a lot. Even sometimes they give me free drink. Food.
That's good.
Yeah, we talk a lot.
Not quite worth going to jail for, but
it's not bad. Sometimes it's not bad. So yes, there are supporters. There are.
It's just small.
That
it's
is
just
small.
a few.
Yeah, they don't show out a lot,
family,
but there are. When you travel, you found that some people, they quite good. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes it is surprising to find that there are still some people who understand, despite either Rohingya or not, or other issue, who understand that journalists do the reporting and what is happening on the ground. So sometimes it is also surprising to me. I found some people, although majority doesn't have that shared view, but there's still, I have to say, so there's still hope.
So there are, I often think about, your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving who gives you a hard time over some story that you've been doing because they just don't like whoever that you're reporting on. But you're saying that people can take on board, if you have that personal conversation and say, but look, here's the facts, that you can convince people that the Rohingya are not as they've been portrayed by the government.
It will be difficult, just like what my friend mentioned, when you are, at the end of the day, when I have a good drink with my friend and started talking about it ended with a fight. So we don't, it's really difficult. Either I lose the friend or I lose the conversation. So there's only a certain limited people that I can talk about this issue. So for me, I'm so happy if I found someone that I can talk about because it's really rare. So it's not easy to convince people and change their view because they're just so much into the fake news and all the portrayed by the government.
In the back.
Hi, Jonathan Landreth. About 5 years ago on China File, the online magazine of the Center on U.S.-China Relations here at Asia Society, we ran a story about Chinese online social media reaction to the repeal of censorship in neighboring Myanmar, in Burma, and how excited Chinese were that their neighbors in Burma should all of a sudden have free press. So taking that in mind and considering what you've talked about Facebook, which is not available in China, what pressures, if any, do you feel might be coming from neighboring China today, where the example of a trial run at a free press next door could be threatening to the powers that be in Beijing?
There is one China media, it's called China 123.com or something. They post a cartoon. That cartoon is anti Rohingya. It shows a bulb, and then in the middle of the boat is broken, and then Rohingya try to get in. And then in China and Russia, like we have Burma, like that kind of thing is showing like that. So China is really bad and really bad influence. So they should not do like that. So, but again, there are many nationalities in the country, and then they try the cartoon. So it people kind of did like, look, this China, they have Burma. Look. Yeah. So that kind of thing China doing. So, yeah.
We had some other hands in the back that I missed. Yes.
So, Tom had brought up what is the situation now in Bangladesh, and of course, we're not hearing a lot right now, but a friend of mine who is very involved with this situation, who works for the UN, and he goes back and forth to Bangladesh, told me that the two big issues right now are not only, of course, somebody did bring up the arrival of the monsoon soon, and that these makeshift camps are going to be just washed away, which is horrible, but he told me something even more horrific, which is that many thousands of these poor Rohingya women have been impregnated through repeated rapes, and that thousands of unwanted children are going to be born in these camps, which is about as horrible a thought as I can think of. Do you know anything about this?
There was a recent report from Reuters that like 60 babies born a day in Rohingya camp. So we don't know how many exactly, but there are reports and happening. Like it might not be thousands, but our recent coverage was like 60 babies per day. So we will cover more, and we can tell you through our news story how many and what happening. But yes, they are those kind of babies born.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Anybody? Yes, please.
Sorry, mine was just following up on Barbara, so on the issue of difficulties in hate speech. I noticed, Kevin, for example, your tweet feed is protected. Is that because of...
It's just because it's boring.
Well, I'm sorry, I was kind of hoping for a more exciting response, but never mind. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Just to go back to the question of Cox's Bazar, I mean, some of the work we've done and are continuing to do looks at, in a really specific way, geolocating as the monsoons approach, where latrines are, how close those are to areas where people are eating and sleeping, and trying to get, in a graphic way, a comprehensive picture of where the camps have been and where they will be going as we go through the monsoon season.
Hi, I'm Bobby Ghosh. You hinted at some of the other minorities who are looking at what's going on with the Rohingya and beginning to worry about their own fate. Who are the most vulnerable about the minorities? Now that so many or most of the Rohingya have successfully been driven out of the country, who do you think the military will turn to next? Which is the next most vulnerable minority? And in terms of Reuters' coverage, who are you beginning to pay attention to?
So in the country, let's say after Rohingya refugee like a chain, where they are fighting ongoing like almost like 2 months now. So there are 150,000 IDP now. So they launched the military, and then they told the people to leave. So all the village, all the area had to leave. Now they had to come to the town. So there is no more people on the ground in the village. A little bit similar to the Rohingya, where they had to flee. But these refugees, they don't flee. They come to the town. They stay at a church, Kachina Christian, so they stay at a church. But if you look at the detailed strategy of the military, it's very similar. They drive out the people and attack the rebel, destroy what they like, take a base, set out the army, took the land. That is how the strategy. So that's why the ethnic people are worried. They look at the action to the Rohingya, the act to the ethnic group, very similar. But again, this is civil war in the country is like going on 60 years. They did in the past too. And look at if we look in the past, again, it's similar to the Rohingya. A lot of Korean people staying at the on the Thai border at the refugee camp, like more than 100,000 people, right? So it's the same strategy they are doing.
Yeah. I mean, we also started reporting about the Kachin, the civil war, what Kachin, like my colleagues, some other my colleagues who also speak Kachin language, flying to the Myitkyina and cover about this. Yes, there are many. It is not that they will be wiped out. It is not that they will be like kicked out, or because they cannot, because they are authorized citizens, so they cannot do that. But yeah, maybe not wiped out, but it doesn't mean like it won't be as worse as what Rohingya suffered. So yeah, for now they are wiped out from their residency, like from their village. Now they are in the church or in the town, with the internally displaced camps and things. So now they are suffering that.
One more question. Woman in the back.
Giosetta Capriati, Foreign Policy Association. What do you think of Pope Francis, who when he went to Myanmar, he refused to even pronounce the word Rohingya? The unofficial reason given by some Vatican insiders was that he didn't want to worsen the situation of the Catholic minority there.
So she's asking that Pope Francis didn't even say the word Rohingya. Was it because, as some people said, that he was protecting the Catholic minority? Do you think that's why he did that, or didn't do what people had hoped he would do?
Catholic. I think that is before he went there. The government informed him not to use a word or Rohingya when he come to the country. That's why I think he did not use a word at the Rohingya, because of, he didn't want to have attention with the government. He just wanted to see the people and show love, help the people. That's all I think. The government informed him ahead not to use it.
Yeah, it's in a way protecting his own people, not to be targeted, in a way. But yes, exactly. The government informed him not to use, so he don't use it.
And there was, not explicitly, but he would understand that there could be consequences.
Yes, he understands there will be consequences.
Yeah. Thank you all very, very much. I'd like to thank the panelists who did a marvelous job answering very hard questions.